The gun came up before the door was even open all the way. Safety off, finger tight on the trigger. There were 5 men scattered across my porch and yard, black vests and radios crackling like bad static. The guy at the front security badge stuck on crooked and peeling pointed his pistol square at my chest. "Vault code," he barked. "HOA safety audit." I just stood there still as a fence post. Not scared, just falling into old habits. I started counting their positions, letting my eyes sweep the porch and the yard. 1 man blocking the steps, 2 flanking the driveway. 1 was filming with his phone. Another lingered at the curb by an idling car, hazards blinking like an omen. And then Mara Voss appeared, arms folded, her voice as steady as her heels on the porch wood. "Just give them the code," she said, "calm as you please. This ends fast if you cooperate." The man's gun wavered. Mara's confidence didn't. Giving them anything was never an option. The second I said no, Mara's smile vanished. "Then we escalate," she said, and turned away as if my house was already hers to command. 5 men, 1 code, and a question burning in my mind: did any of them realize who I really was? Mara didn't ask for permission. She ordered it, snapped her fingers, told them to secure the perimeter like my yard was already property of the HOA. She moved closer, heels tapping, sharp eyes locked on my front door. "This is a community safety action," she called out for the cameras. "You've been flagged as non-compliant." One of her men raised a clipboard like it was a badge. Another fiddled with a crooked body cam. Mara was the HOA president. Her reign was built on memos and fear not votes. 1 sentence and her whole philosophy was clear: control dressed up as protection. "Insurance requires documentation," she said, pretending to care. "If we don't verify, your coverage gets complicated." She gestured toward my house. "We're not here to search," she claimed, wearing a thin smile. "Just need the code." Never once did she look at the gun for long. She spoke in official-sounding phrases, letting her crew do the dirty work while she stayed clean. A neighbor cracked open a window across the street, then snapped it shut. "I've already responded in writing," I told her, voice flat. "You don't have the authority." Mara's lips tightened. "Authority isn't the problem," she said. "Cooperation is." She stepped back, nodded. The men shifted closer. And right then it became clear this wasn't some mix-up. It was a test one Mara Voss expected me to fail. After Mara's signal, they didn't leave. They lingered. Blocker on the steps, 2 at the driveway, the guy with the gun up front close enough to smell the cheap aftershave. "You don't have authority to demand a vault code." No answer. Just a glance back at Mara. She looked bored. "We already sent notices. This is a courtesy follow-up, a courtesy with a gun." That night, a violation notice hit my inbox, time-stamped half an hour after they drove away. Firearm safety non-compliance, no citation, no statute, just a deadline and a warning about insurance. By morning, another notice, then a third. The language was all the same, but the sender names changed. It was built to feel automated, inevitable, like resistance was pointless. I replied once, calmly citing state law and the HOA bylaws. Denied access, asked for all further contact in writing. The reply was nearly instant. Enforcement pending, no signature. That's when the patrol started. Black SUV across the street at night, headlights off, someone inside scrolling on their phone. Never knocked. They didn't have to. Message received. It's a funny thing, old habits, especially the ones that keep you alive, they don't fade. I hadn't worn the uniform in years, but I was still counting positions, reading hands, noting who looked nervous and who was just playing at it. Army combat arms, honorable discharge. I didn't talk about it, didn't want the attention. I'd moved here for quiet, not respect, not questions. To the HOA, I was just another homeowner who kept to himself. Didn't tell anyone what happened. That was my first mistake. The next HOA board meeting was set for noon on a weekday, so the room would be empty. I showed up anyway. Mara ran it like a courtroom she already owned. No discussion, no motions, just a temporary safety directive tacked onto the agenda at the last second. She sped through it, skipped objections, declared it passed. Didn't mention guns, just risk mitigation. Authorized third-party security verification for anyone high liability. No vote count, no quorum, just a gavel tap and that thin smile. After the meeting, one of Mara's men found me in the hall. Clipboard in hand, practiced grin. Voluntary compliance keeps premiums down, he said. Refusal puts everyone at risk. I'll take my chances, I replied. That night, a new email showed up, this time from an insurance broker I'd never heard of. Mandatory monitoring, biometric verification audits, monthly fees. The sender's address traced straight back to the HOA's security contractor. Suddenly, the real story snapped into place. They weren't after an inspection. They were after a payday. I started pulling records, vendor contracts, corporate filings. Mara's contractor had 3 shell companies in 18 months. One billed for risk assessments, one for compliance, one for consulting fees, kicked right back to 2 board members. Numbers were ugly, mid-6 figures skimmed off in under a year. Every homeowner with a safe room or vault was flagged. Comply, pay monthly. Refuse, get labeled non-compliant and threatened with liens or insurance cancellation. Something cold settled in my chest. This wasn't harassment. It was fraud. So I let the old discipline take over. The kind you learn where mistakes can kill. The next message came, a threat of emergency enforcement. I didn't reply. I saved it. Now I understood their rule: break one homeowner publicly and the rest pay quietly. And Mara, whether she knew it or not, had already escalated past any return. I didn't go loud. I went precise. First, the county clerk asked about who could legally authorize an HOA directive like this. She pulled the statute, read it twice, then confirmed, they can't. Next, the insurer, not the sketchy broker, but the underwriter. I forwarded the HOA's notice and the contractor's proposal. 10 minutes later, the underwriter called. That audit isn't recognized. No coverage depends on sharing vault access. That's false. I got that in writing. By sundown, I had 3 things Mara never saw coming: a written denial from the insurer, confirmation from the clerk, and an attorney who was now interested in coercion and insurance fraud. Mara upped the pressure. Certified letter, emergency safety action if I remain non-compliant. Another email threat of a lien. A third, temporary condemnation. None of them cited a statute. All of them carried the same threat: comply, now fight later. That night, 2 men from my porch came back. Didn't knock. Just stood at the edge of my driveway, radios on, watching the house. The SUV idled, headlights off. I didn't confront them. Just documented everything. Because this wasn't about refusing a code anymore. It was about forcing a precedent, using fear to make a fake rule feel real. The whistleblower didn't come from outside the HOA. She came from the inside. An email hit my inbox after midnight. No greeting, just files. Board minutes, never published vendor contracts marked confidential, a spreadsheet tracking homes by compliant, pending, resistant. My address alone in the last column. Another file cracked it open. Revenue forecast, monthly fees, kickbacks, labeled as consulting. Mara's handwriting: break one publicly, the rest will fall in line. It wasn't a rogue contractor, not just a greedy board. It was a system built to intimidate homeowners into paying for protection they didn't need. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and the county investigator. Sent one last email to the HOA: all further contact goes through counsel. Do not return to my property. Mara replied in minutes: emergency meeting tomorrow. Attendance mandatory. Compliance will be addressed publicly. She still thought this was about a code. Next morning, county investigator called. Sheriff would be present, not as security, but as observer. Bring everything. Don't engage unless asked. Arrived at the meeting. Room buzzing, neighbors whispering, phones out. Mara at the front, perfectly composed, smiling like order was already restored. She glanced at me, once confident. I took a seat, waited. She had no clue what was coming. No idea the quiet guy had turned her campaign into a public reckoning. Gavel dropped, the doors opened. Room fell silent when the sheriff stepped in. Not loud, not rushed, just enough presence to turn every head. Mara bounced back, ready to perform. This is a community safety meeting, she said, tapping the mic. We're here to address non-compliance that puts our insurance and families at risk. She gestured toward me without naming me. Heads turned, neighbors shifted. We offered solutions. We asked for cooperation. Instead, refusal. That's not how communities work. Sheriff didn't interrupt. One of Mara's porch men stood by the wall, no gun, no confidence. Mara leaned forward, voice smooth. Before this escalates, I propose, Sheriff spoke up. Before you do that, the county has questions about your authority to make these demands. Room stirred. Mara blinked. This isn't a county matter. Sheriff nodded. It is now. The investigator stood plugged in a laptop, no speech, just emails, contracts, payment logs, revenue projections. A spreadsheet, high liability homes, my address highlighted red. Contract with the compliance firm signed by Mara and 2 board members. Mandatory audits, monthly fees, kickbacks. Then the insurer's letter. This audit is not recognized. Coverage is not contingent on vault access. Investigator said these practices constitute insurance fraud and coercion. Mara stood, voice shaky. This is out of context. Next slide, her handwritten note. Break one publicly. The rest will fall in line. A gasp. Chair scraped. Sheriff, is this your handwriting? She faltered. I was under pressure. The room turned, neighbors, board members, all of them. She tried to blame the contractor. Sheriff, you directed armed personnel to demand access to private vaults under false pretenses. Mara, we were protecting the community. Sheriff, you were running a protection scheme. 2 deputies cuffed her. Board members stood. I resign. Another, then another. Now all the phones pointed at her. As Mara passed by, she finally looked at me confused, scared, realizing too late who she'd picked a fight with. Doors closed. For the first time since it all started, the silence felt like justice. Room didn't cheer. It sagged. People shifted gravity back in the room. Phones lowered. A woman near the aisle pressed her palm to her mouth, staring at the evidence. Another neighbor stood, confessed she'd been paying the fees for months, scared of losing insurance. Others followed quiet confessions, stacking up. I just sat there, hands on the table, letting it unfold. Former board members whispered, pale, nervous. Sheriff asked the investigator quietly, "Do we have his background?" Investigator nodded. Yes. Nothing was said, but the ripple went out. Someone behind me whispered, "Wait, background." Another sharper. What kind of background? Suddenly, I wasn't just the stubborn homeowner anymore. I was an unknown quantity. One former board member murmured, "Oh my God." DA's voice came on speaker, charges for fraud, conspiracy, coercion, abuse of authority. HOA enforcement frozen. Restitution for homeowners. Deputy read a county order effective immediately. No HOA could demand firearm audits or codes without a court order. DA's last note, subject's restraint avoided escalation. That will be noted. Silence again, but now it felt different, relief maybe, or understanding. A county officer tore the red tag in half. Contractor's permits revoked. HOA security agreement terminated. Meeting dissolved. No ceremony, just people in clusters whispering about consequences. Walking out, a former board member caught up, breathless. We didn't know. If we'd known, stopped him, not angry, not smug, just finished. That's the point. Evening air felt clean, unwatched. Porch lights blinked on. At my door, I paused, hand on the frame, listening to the neighborhood settle. Inside the vault was untouched, closed. Didn't even open it. They'd finally learned the difference between authority and force, and they learned it from the wrong person, way too late. Some mistakes don't explode. They just show you how close you came to disaster. So was justice served, or was it just luck this time? Where's the line between protecting a community and abusing power? Drop your thoughts below, or share a time you stood up to the rules and saw what was really behind them. Sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to stare it down and refuse to blink.